Hey guys, it's me, EODGamer here, and in this video, we're going to be talking about Acheron. Is she still worth it in the current patch? All of us more or less know by now that in a turn-based game like Honkai Star Rail, as time goes by, power creep does come into the game, and DPS characters like Acheron's no exception again, can't escape from this fact. But let's talk about whether she is still worth it to pull in this patch. We're going to be talking about a number of things. First, I want to talk about E0 and Acheron's broad general state in the game right now. And then we will talk as well on Eidolons for any of you who already have her at base copy and my thoughts on whether it's worth the investment to go slightly deeper, and even perhaps her signature if any of you who are thinking about pulling for Acheron's light cone as well. Now, in order to really understand and appreciate a DPS's value like Acheron that has been her second rerun by now, we need to look at the overall landscape of things. The easiest way I thought of doing this is just showing you a top-down approach, looking at the entire game, showing you the meta DPSs and putting them in different buckets right now. Now, I just took simply the DPSs who are the most relevant as much as I can. Of course, there are a lot of DPSs. I can't put everyone in here, if not there won't be any space at all. But here are some of the key examples of characters and how they fill different niches in the game. So, in my opinion, there are 9 different teams of Honkai Star Rail. The rotation of why these 9 teams even exist is because the buffs and how the meta seems to rotates around like a clock in a sense, and this clock has 9 hours in a sense, and the meta kind of rotates around the 9 of these different categories. So right now, we are like appearing to move into a more of a HP decay kind of meta where a lot of characters start to manipulate their own HP. Remembrance Summon, of course, is another one that is coming a bit more into the game. We are a bit moving away from the debuff as well as break categories. But if you are looking to fill up your entire clock, so to speak, Acheron is still the best in slot for debuff. And she is as well as an emanator in terms of lore. She's really very strong. So temporarily, while we are moving towards like emanators like Hertha, we are moving to Castorice, and maybe even Aglia, who competes in the same element as Acheron. Acheron is still best in slot for debuff, and if you do not have a character, a class that taps on nihility, and you want to scale with future nihility characters being added into the game, Acheron is still the best in class for filling this section of the clock. At least right for now, and is that, in my opinion, definitely still worth it to at least consider picking up for your account because she's still a very strong DPS. In my opinion, the biggest competition for Acheron comes against or competing with a character like Aglia in terms of elemental coverage. If you are talking about broad-based game state, Acheron is more of a splash AoE kind of character that wants to play with nihility characters, so a little bit restrictive. Aglia, on the other hand, maybe is a more fast and often summon-based character of a similar typing. Both of them are excellent characters, but they all fulfill slightly different niches as we talked about in their respective videos. This is not a comparison video, it's just to show you where Acheron still stands out. So right at the center of the clock, debuff, she's still special, she's the only one, but DPSs, again, we are moving towards a slightly different favoritism right now. But that is just an overall landscape, food for thought. Now let's go back into the game engine real quick and we can talk about my thoughts. So we've seen where she positions. She's definitely still having her niche. She's definitely still unique. She's a very balanced character that performs well in all of the game modes. If you like her design, you like the Raiden kind of look that she is, I think she's still very solid. Definitely worth it to pull at E0. Now the harder question, in my opinion, comes when you are trying to go for slightly deeper investment. Because base E0, S0 Acheron, without characters, for example, any other nihility characters, if you don't have Jiao Qiu, and maybe you have a lot of only 4 stars, likely you might not be outputting the same amount of DPS as compared to like the Hertha and stuff like that, who are the newer varieties. But now we know that they can always get buffed. Maybe Acheron in future is going to get buffed. So if you like her second rerun, you might want to pick her up if you are considering to, or who knows, maybe she might be added to like the standard pool, but highly unlikely anytime soon. The biggest, in my opinion, weakness of Acheron is her reliance on her signature light cone. In the game right now, to be really honest, the best alternative to Acheron is probably going to be Boundless Choreo. This one over here, this is a limited 4-star. Was only introduced after her first patch. Gives you good amounts of crit. It's a limited one, so most of you might only have it as Superimposition 1. It gives you a nice amount of crit, especially if you're playing against enemies that have some slow or defense reduction, which if you're playing with a Nihility teammate, a lot of them can do. So this is probably going to be her cheapest alternative. Again, her cheapest alternative is a limited light cone of a 4-star variant, and apart from that, you don't really have too many other choices. So in my opinion, that's one of the key weaknesses of Acheron, because her alternatives of light cones are mostly limited. So you don't have like a free-to-play option that is close to what she has in the signature. And if you have a signature, the difference is quite significant. But definitely worth picking up. E0S1 Acheron is very, very strong as well. I think light cone definitely worth it if you have E0S1. Even in the current game state, it just helps you solidify your Acheron's position. The bigger question then becomes Eidolons. Now, in this current moment, this is where I get a little bit more conflicted in terms of recommendations, and I'll share with you honestly what I think. If you already have E0S1 Acheron and you're thinking of pulling multiple copies of Acheron, the one that really you care about is probably going to be E2, which is reducing the amount of Nihility characters that you need to complete her roster. Now, if you are thinking from a long-term perspective, right, you are probably playing Acheron. As we talked about in the clock that you mentioned, you're probably getting Acheron geared up for the fact that you are going to be, any other Nihility character that's coming into the game would scale your Acheron nicely. So you probably are, eventually when a lot of other DPS is getting added into the game, you're probably going to play Acheron specifically for debuff, and in a debuff focus niche, she's probably going to have a lot of Nihility teammates. In that sense, my opinion changes in terms of the importance of E2. E2 was great when it first came out because it made her a very strong DPS, but if you think about hedging your risk, you might as well use E1 and E2, additional limited pools, for other characters in your account so that you can touch as many bases as you can in the clock, trying to fill as many of the different spots. What this means is E2 nowadays becomes a bit more of a luxury, unless of course you are a super Acheron sim, you want to do as much damage as you can. Again, you might be better off spending that additional Eidolons on other newer characters, broaden your account horizon, your account depth, so that you can tackle more content. And this one is really a luxury, but it does add a significant amount of damage, which is why I pulled it. But nowadays, I don't think it's as critical. If you think about it from a long-term perspective, why will you play Acheron? It's probably going to be in a debuff focus, many Nihility team anyway. So you're probably going to play with 2 Nihility in the roster too. That's my thoughts at least. E1, again, not super critical. This is just a little bit of additional crit rate. You're paying an entire limited character, which is really, really very expensive. The only reason you'll be going for E1 likely is because you want to push for E2. Other than that, that's my honest thoughts. For E4, E6, for those of you who want to see actual number testing, we actually have a video on the channel comparing like E1 versus E2 versus E4, E6, the damage difference, adding in S1, taking out S1. All the numbers have already been calculated. I can't decide for you how much value your money is worth. You can check that video out if you're interested in the numbers, the nitty-gritty. But those are honestly my overall thoughts for Acheron. I still think she is pretty much a solid pick for any account, although in terms of importance, right now versus when she first came about, she was of course much more valuable, but she's still a very, very solid pick and definitely a great one to have, especially since she's a solid, unreplaceable character in the debuff category in future as well as potential upside in the future. Maybe she will potentially get buffed in multipliers. So pull characters that you want. Second time she reruns, don't know when her third time is going to be around. That's my honest opinions. If you found this video helpful, you like my honest content as well, consider liking, subscribing for more such future content. We do this every single patch. See you guys in the next video.